Hi guys, it's Joe Tommaso from the 15 Minutes With podcast. Our show is geared toward helping to keep not only teens but people in general out of our jails and prisons. Our show is unique in the fact that we use real inmates throughout the country and they explain not only about the cases that caused their incarceration, but why it's so important for people to stay out of prison and remain free. Speaking of free, have you heard about the newest and best way to put your podcast out there for the world to hear? Let me tell you about Anchor. Anchor is the easiest way to produce and distribute your ideas, your podcast, and the best part, it's free. There's even a creation tool that allows you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or your computer. Anchor will even distribute your podcast for you so people can hear it on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and many other listening platforms. You can even make money from your podcast, and there are no minimal amount of listeners required. Anchor is everything you need to make a podcast in one place. So what are you waiting for? Download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm and get started.
Hey everybody, and thanks for listening to this edition of 15 Minutes With. Glad you guys are here. Glad you're listening. So, what is prison like? Is it like shows you see on TV, such as Locked Up and 60 Days In, or is it totally different? We're going to talk to our friend Randy, who is from the Midwest and has spent time in federal prison, and he's going to tell us what federal prison's like. Swimming pools, golf courses, or at least so they say. If you'd like to keep the show going and would like to see it get better, please, by all means, donate to paypal.me/Joe Tommaso. Again, that's paypal.me/JoeTomaso. If there are any questions, comments, or somebody you would like to see me try to interview, please, by all means, email me at insidetherazorwire@gmail.com. Again, that email is insidetherazorwire@gmail.com. Or you can snail mail me at P.O. Box 162, West Haven, Connecticut 06516. So prison, what's it all about? Let's see. So what's your name and where you're from?
Okay, my name is Randy, and I'm from the Midwest, Central U.S., whatever.
Okay, so where have you served time?
Well, I started in, of course, the transport center in Oklahoma. They didn't know where they wanted to send me, so I spent 2 or 3 months there. And then from there, they shipped me over to FMC Devens, which is supposed to be a medical center. I'm a little on the older side. I guess I needed more help than I thought. And they also then got tired of me there, so they shipped me over to, I guess it's FMC Brooklyn, whatever they call that one in Brooklyn.
Oh, you're talking about the detention center, Federal Detention Center, Brooklyn.
Is that what that one's called?
Yep.
Once again, and they did have a medical staff there, surprisingly. And from there, back to Oklahoma for another month or two. Then they bussed me down to Segoville, Texas, which was, again, another low-security type prison. And I spent the rest of my time there at Segoville.
Tell me a little bit about the actual prisons, what they were like. And actually, what's prison like overall?
Well, let's start with Devens. I spent quite a bit of time there. The prison itself, again, being it was a medical facility, it encompassed everything from hardcore criminals to the white-collar crime. It was reasonably clean for a prison. The bathrooms actually had shower curtains on the showers. For a while, anyway, just before I had left, they tore the doors off of the stools and took the shower curtains down because there had been some hanky-panky going on in the bathrooms after lockdown. Okay. These were open compound, or what do you call it, open cubicles.
Dormitory style, you mean?
Yeah, there you go. Well, not quite dormitory, but it had, I think it was 64 cubes per floor, and they were open-topped, open-doored little boxes, 8 by 8, 9 by 9, whatever they were. But you were basically allowed to go to the restroom at night, and I guess that was about it. You were supposed to be wandering around.
That's going to get me to my next thing. What was the movement like? Well, actually, there's shows out there like Lock Up and 60 Days In. They're pretty much, I'll call it sanitized. They show these nice, clean prisons. They show, everything's all nice and organized. Everybody's getting taken care of, the whole 9 yards. Is that what prisons really like, or is it different? And then also, what's the freedom level on the inside? Are you able to move around, or is it controlled movements, etc.?
Okay, let's stick with the FMC Devens, which again was a medical facility. We could wander around the building from 7 in the morning till 10 at night, and we could go to the yard on 1 hourly moves or to the library, but the moves were 10 minutes and happened every hour, if they remembered to call them.
So basically what you're saying is every hour they basically said, okay, if you guys want to go out, you can go out, and you had 10 minutes to get from point A to point B.
Right, and you also, again, at Devens, you had to get a pass. So if you got caught at the rec yard or the library without one of these little cardboard passes, that was grounds to throw you in the hole, if they so desired, or penalize you some other way. You also had the 10-minute move to get to the clinic, which, again, being Devens, was a medical facility. That was kind of silly sometimes, because some of these old guys, hell, they had little walkers that they had to run. I think the compound was almost a half mile long. They had to try to shuffle up the hill to get to the clinic in that little 5 or 10 minute move, depending on which cop was on, which one was being asked that day, or it just all so much depended.
So now let me ask you: if you did not make it from point A to point B, what happened?
Under normal conditions, they would just run you into the nearest building that you're walking by, and they would make you sit there until the next hour's move. So that could mean losing your appointment at the clinic, which again could wind up getting you thrown in the shoe because you didn't show up for your appointment. Or if you were actually in dire need of medical attention, you could wind up having to wait another week to get an appointment. So things were not too well organized. I mean, they had their set times for things to happen, but they had too many, I almost didn't call them, too many assholes that were the compound cops, and they were God. They could do anything to you they wanted.
Well, since we're talking about medical as well, what was medical actually like? And I know, and not just what was it like, but some of the facilities, both federal and Pennsylvania, for an instance, these guys have to pay $5 copay for each of their medications for every time they went to the doctors and all that. I mean, is that the same with the federal system or no?
Well, the feds, they would charge you $2 for the doctor's visits. I don't think they ever charged me for my prescriptions, but I do know I got clipped $2 every time you went to the doctor.
Okay, and how was the actual medical care at, say, Devens being a medical facility?
Very, very, very poor. They had a massive staff, but they just were the dregs of humanity. I'm assuming they couldn't get a job anywhere else. Well, actually, that one doctor, he was blackballed from probably every clinic in Massachusetts because he was a damn fool drunk and a drug addict. But yet, he could work at the prison because you really don't need a license to practice at a prison. And the head of the medical facilities were either public health service, and some were good, some were bad. They had some contractors working, which I was fortunate enough to get a PA that was a private contractor. And the story even went that she had quit once before because they would not allow her to treat patients properly. So she basically up and quit. While they were so desperate for help, they wound up hiring her back and letting her do her job. And thanks to her, they found my prostate cancer in time. And if it wouldn't have been for her, if any of the other clowns that I would have been going to, I may not be here to discuss this.
Wow.
But due to her diligence, she did enough tests, and she was just a really good lady. That's all I can say.
So there are some good people in the system, most.
damn far and few between. How does that sound? But yes, there are some good ones. But on the whole, I wouldn't take my dog to most of them.
Okay. How's the food in the system? How were you served an adequate amount of food? Was it any good? Was it bad? How was it?
Well, the food, again, and actually in every institution I was in, the food was almost identical. And I know there's rules about having 2,000 calories a day or something. But what they would do is they'd load you up with sugar for breakfast, be it donuts or bagels or cereal, and you would have your 1,500 calories for breakfast, and then your lunch could be really much of nothing, and then the evening meal was usually fairly edible. But I don't think I gained any weight in prison. I'll put it that way. If I did, it was from eating Twinkies, because you can't survive on the amount of food they give you. So you have to buy all kinds of food off the commissary and make your own sandwiches or hot soups or.
That's what I actually heard from a lot of people, is that you couldn't get by on the food that we were served there. Most people were getting by on what they would buy at the commissary.
Very true, and then of course again, whatever you could get off the black market out of the kitchen. That was probably your best staple, because if you had a good kitchen connection, you could actually eat pretty well, or trade it for something better. But that was key, having a good friend in the kitchen.
Okay. When you were on the inside, did you ever see any violence while you were there?
Devens, I seen a couple of squabbles and skirmishes, whatever you want to call it. I think the worst I seen was one morning, this one kid, I don't remember what the deal was. I think he was actually going to be released, and he didn't really want to go. So he jumped some poor son of a gun in the bathroom while he was on the toilet and pretty much beat the crap out of him. But the cop, if I'm understanding correctly, their rules are they do not get in the middle of a fight for fear of getting themselves hurt, mm-hmm. or being a fake fight to get to the cop. Mm-hmm. So this particular cop, he hit his panic button, and I guess it took at least 10 minutes for anybody to show up. It was the middle of the night. And meanwhile, these two guys are beating the snot out of each other. No one got extremely hurt, but I'm sure there were some bruises and bones beat up a little bit. Let's see. That was the worst one I think I seen at Devens. No, I take it back. Somebody had in for somebody, and when you're out for sports on the playing fields, you're supposed to be at least one, if not two, cops on the field at all times when any equipment is out. Mm-hmm. Well, during baseball season, one guy wanted payback on another guy, and he smacked him upside the head with a ball bat.
That'll work.
Yeah, that put a pretty good ding in his head. Well, by the time medical got down there, by the time they got the gates open and yada, yada, they did get him up to the clinic and got him brought back to health, but boy, he took a hell of a knot on the head. And let's see, Texas was pretty uneventful, really, except when the K2 became so prevalent. And I don't know that much about it. I just know it affects people so differently. One guy was dancing up on the railing like he was going to jump, but he was just having fun. One guy got into a hell of a fight in the bathroom over God knows what. And then this one kid, every time he smoked it, he just got loopy. And he fell down the stairs one night and dinged himself up a little bit. And his cellie picked him up and hauled him back upstairs and hit him so no one knew what happened. Well, 2 days later, they're smoking a fresh batch that came in, and the friend that helped him decided he didn't like him anymore and beat the really bad shit out of him.
Well, that's why I was going to ask you if there were any drugs in the facility, etc. And for the listeners that don't know what this is, K2 is actually also known as spice. It's also like a synthetic, they call it synthetic marijuana, but this stuff can actually kill you. So, did you see anything other than that floating around, or? No,
the worst I seen was just the K2 and some pot. I never seen any real hard stuff. There were rumors of it coming in on envelopes that had been treated with it, or the postage stamps had been treated with it. But I personally did not see it or can vouch that it was there, so I just don't know.
Well, what I wanted to bring up too, recently and this was at conveniently FMC Devens, over the winter, there was a member of the clergy that was actually arrested from the staff, from the investigative unit staff, as well as I believe it was an outside drug agency, and they actually arrested that person for bringing in Suboxone to the inmates there. Matter of fact, I believe that person just got sentenced a couple of months ago. But so there are some harder drugs in there. How did the guards treat you overall?
Let me interject on the drugs real quick. I forgot a good story.
Okay.
A lot of the guys that were on the oxycodone, the heavier, dutier painkillers, they would cheek their pills and just hide it in their mouth till they got outside, and then they'd spit it into a napkin. And there were enough goofy people that would pay to re-eat the same pill. And but the guards themselves, I would have to say 9 out of 10 just didn't give a damn. They were there to put their 8 in and go home. They could have cared less if you burnt the place down. Then you had a handful that were gung-ho little Nazi paratroopers, or whatever you want to call them. But they would try to make your life as miserable as possible. If somebody ticked them off, we had a count one night where 2 guys were occupying the same bed, so we were short one guy. Well, shit, they came in the next morning and they tore our dorm to pieces. Just to show they could do it, they threw your clothes, your toothbrushes, stomped on your toothpaste. I mean, threw your clothes away. And that was just their way of letting you know that you are not in charge. So don't be playing this anymore. It didn't help any. But
that's what I was going to bring up as well, as far as the guards' treatment. I actually had talked to you a couple of days ago, or maybe about a week ago, at FMC Devens yet again. There was actually a guard that was arrested. And this case is actually pending right now. There was a guard that was arrested because he apparently beat up a cuffed inmate. And then there was a lieutenant that was involved also, I guess, in a cover-up, and they actually arrested both of them.
Well, the one guy that did the actual beating up, I remember him, and he was nuts. His objective was to try to make your life as miserable as possible. And the old saying goes, I am here for punishment. I'm here as punishment, not for punishment. And some of these guards decided they wanted to add their own little flavor. And they would torment you any way they could. This same particular idiot, he blatantly ran into a kid one day on the sidewalk and charged him with assaulting an officer, threw him in the shoe, and I mean, I believe it was caught on camera, was the only way the kid got out of it. But they didn't prosecute him or do anything to him because he's just one of them.
Right.
It's always them and us, no matter how you do it.
So speaking of the shoe, which is also the hole, have you ever been in the hole, and what's it like?
Okay, I was in there, I think, twice for alleged infringements. One was they said I had a dirty urine test, so they threw me in the shoe for a week or two. And once again, you're in a 9x10 box, 8x10 box with bunk beds in it. And luckily, again, Devens had built-in showers, so at least you could shower every day. Mm-hmm. And usually you had two guys in the cell together, so you just crossed your finger that you had a decent person and not some hater or murderer or whatever in there with you.
Right.
But other than being just isolated and ignored, there are times when you run out of toilet paper and the cops won't even come by to see if you need that. You have your pill calls twice a day. And the funniest thing was the psychologist would come by, I believe, once or twice a day to do a sanity check. He'd walk by, peek at the door, and hightail it out the howl before you could even holler at him.
That's what I was going to bring up. I was going to ask you. It was my understanding that they're supposed to check on you. As a matter of fact, obviously, you know what happened in New York conveniently with Jeffrey Epstein, who wound up for the listeners that don't know, Jeffrey Epstein was a financer. He wound up getting arrested for sex trafficking and wound up committing suicide in MDC Manhattan, and it's kind of ironic. They're supposed to have 15 or 30-minute checks, and they didn't check anything in 14 hours. So did you find that same experience when you were in, the hole there? Did they actually check on you guys every 30 minutes? Did they just not bother coming around, or how was it?
No, they never bothered coming around. They just, they would basically just do their counts. What were they, 5 p.m., 9 p.m., midnight, and 6 in the morning.
Oh yeah, I know that on the actual compound from talking to the guys, you had a count on Saturdays. I think it was Saturdays and Sundays. They had, or in holidays, there was a count at 10 o'clock in the morning or 9 o'clock in the morning. They had another count at 4 o'clock in the afternoon.
Yeah, right.
I don't know if they had one at the noon meal or not. I can't remember.
We did not have one. What you're saying is correct. It was, I think every day was basically overnight. I think they had one. Then, like you said, they had one like 8 in the morning, 1, 4 in the afternoon. I think 3 major ones. Let's say 6 in the morning, 4 in the afternoon, and midnight. I think those were the main ones.
And then when you were in your cube or your room for the night, other than going to the bathroom, you were pretty much in your room. You were not free to roam around.
No, we had the TV rooms that we could go into during the days and up until, I believe, 9 o'clock at night. And then you were told to go to your cubicle and to stay there except for bathroom breaks.
Gotcha.
Once again, depending on which CO was on, a lot of them just basically came to sleep, and you could do pretty much what you want. The guys had stole the remote controls for the TVs, so you could turn them on and stand in the hallway and watch TV till the guard woke up and sent you back to bed.
That's a little different.
Yeah, okay. Well, we had one cop, too, that literally came on, and after the midnight count, he would be dead or sound asleep until the morning count, and then sometimes we had to wake him up to do the count because he was so zonked out. I don't know if he had another job somewhere or what, but he was hopeless.
I was going to ask you also, when I was talking to you about medical care before, I had spoke to somebody, and it was about Devens. They actually had, with treating people, as far as that they were sick or, not sick or whatever, there was actually one guy that we had talked about, and I guess he was supposed to go to work in the kitchen early one morning. It was like 3 a.m. He walked up to the guard, told the guard he was having chest pains. They told him to go back to bed. Then apparently he got them to actually look at him, and they told him, you just don't want to work. And I guess the guy wound up turning up dead the next morning. So I would not say that is, even at a federal medical center, that is where you want to get your medical treatment.
No, you definitely do not go there for medical treatment. Because, and other than that, too, we had one that was, when they do their midnight count, they're supposed to be able to see your face and make sure you're breathing.
Mm-hmm.
I think we had at least 2 guys that basically died in their sleep. And no one knew about it until they tried to kick him out of bed to go to breakfast or something.
The next morning.
Yeah, the next morning, and he was already dead in the car.
Wow.
And supposedly the one guy, well, actually, I do know this is true. Being I was old and halfway whatever, but I took a compound job, which is probably the most slack job you can get.
Mm-hmm.
But in the wintertime, you have to shovel snow.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we had one guy that had a hernia the size of a watermelon sticking out of his stomach area,
mm-hmm.
and they made him go out and shovel snow in the middle of a heavy, wet blizzard. And he wound up, I think he wound up dying the next day. I think he ruptured or something.
Wow.
But again, it was just, stupidity on someone's part. It was just dumb. I mean, there's no other way to put it.
The other thing that people don't realize is that when you're in a federal facility, if you're in a state facility, you can work, you don't have to work or whatever. But federal facilities, you're supposedly, you have to work as a facility. You have to have some kind of a job. Whether the job is something you're really working at or not, that's a whole other story. But my understanding is that you definitely have got to work when you're in a federal facility. So
everybody works, and like I say, there was guys that guy in a wheelchair, they were just being silly one morning, but they made him get out of bed and come out to help shovel snow. So his buddy pushed him out in the snow with his wheelchair and gave him a shovel, and he pushed the wheelchair up and down the compound so the guy could be like a little
snowplow.
Yeah. And the cops just thought it was funny or nail. Let him go. No big deal.
Wow.
But that was just typical. I, again, being diabetic, I would always play the neuropathy card that I couldn't feel my toes.
Yeah.
So as soon as I shoveled for about 10 minutes, I was done. I was back in bed.
Okay, I appreciate you telling me about how it is in prisons and all that, and how it is in the federal system. Is there anything you want to tell anybody before we end? Or
do your best to not wind up in a prison anywhere.
Yeah, definitely.
And don't believe any stories about club fed, that they don't exist.
That's what I was going to bring up too. The stories about the tennis courts and the swimming pools and the golf courses. I don't think that's real.
We told people that story. They'd run around looking for them for about a year. Then they finally realized we were jerking their chain.
I actually got to tell you, there was one of the guys that I interviewed was telling me that he was in Virginia. And they had a new guy show up to the facility, and they told him 2 things. One was that every Friday they would get ice cream, but he had to get an ice cream pass. And then the other one was they had a swimming pool, but you could only go into the swimming pool if you had a bathing suit or you had to go up there with your boxers on. And this kid showed up, boxers ready, towel in hand, and I think the entire unit had a good laugh at his expense. That's for sure.
Yeah, the pool one I think goes on in every prison. I really do. And I think Devens, they even told people that there was one in the basement of the hospital. And like you said, you had to get passes and you had to do something. And it was just the old practical joke on the newbie kind of thing.
I guess that's the way you get your time done, you know.
Yeah, exactly. A little self-entertainment. Yep.
Thank you very much for talking to me about this stuff, and hope everything goes well for you.
Yep, actually, probation's going good. I'm trying to behave. I damn sure do not want to go back.
Okay, yeah, you definitely don't want to go back. All right, thank you very much.
All right, Joe, keep up the good fight, buddy.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to 15 Minutes With. I hope you've enjoyed this edition. If you have enjoyed this edition of 15 Minutes With, please hit the like and the subscribe button. You can also help me keep this show going and watch it get better by donating to paypal.me/Joe Tomaso. That address again is paypal.me/JoeTomaso. 15 Minutes With is constantly looking for new content to upload and new people to interview. If you would like to share your story, or if there's someone you would like to see us interview, please email us at insidetherazorwire@gmail.com. That email address again is insidetherazorwire@gmail.com. Last but not least, again, if you like to support this channel, please subscribe and hit the like button. Until next time, we'll be seeing you